Hello, this is Flurry Moon. Welcome back to my channel. We have talked about toys quite a bit on this channel with no intention of stopping anytime soon. Controversial, recalled, and generally forgotten toys have all been covered on this channel, with more coming soon, by the way. But one topic I have been meaning to go over for quite some time is the rarest toys. The releases of our favorite franchises that were either country or store exclusives, special edition or holiday variants, or even one-time releases that only a handful of fans could get their hands on, leaving the rest to scramble, scouring through eBay listing after eBay listing in hopes that one day one of those like 5 people will finally decide to sell their goldmine of a purchase. I thought of many different ways I could put together this video. I can't talk about everything I want to talk about, so unfortunately I probably will have to do a second or even third part to this video, but if you guys like it, I'll do more. But I think the most efficient and fun way of doing this is to separate each section by toy franchise and take a proper dive into each line in their most valuable, highly sought after, and rare releases. Also, sorry for all of the introduction, but I won't be diving into prototypes, unreleased stuff, and factory errors that much. I think I mentioned a couple factory errors in this video because I feel like that's a whole other topic. Anyway, let's just get right into it. Starting with a toy line I haven't talked about in quite a bit and I have literally been dying to. As much as I would love to do a full deep dive video into ZhuZhu Pets, I do fear that's been done before. So whenever I get the chance to talk about ZhuZhu Pets, I'm so excited. I love these little guys and something super traumatic is happening to me right now. I cannot find my freaking ZhuZhu Pets. I've looked everywhere. Released in 2009, ZhuZhu Pets are best described as robotic plush hamsters that make cute noises when pressing their noses and zoom around when pressing their backs. The first 2 releases included the main 8 hamsters you are most likely familiar with: Mr. Squiggles, Pipsqueak, Num Nums, Chunk, Scoodles, Jilly, Nugget, and Winky. I believe I had Nugget and maybe Num Nums. I really wanted Jilly, but that girl was always sold out. I think all the other pink bitches got her before me, but I did end up getting the pink bunny ZhuZhu Pet, which is another thing. They didn't just do hamsters. That's how they started off, but you know they gotta switch it up, so they gave us puppies, kittens, bunnies, babies, and of course Kung Zoo, which was the boy spin-off of ZhuZhu Pets. As much as I want to talk about them today, I do fear I'm saving them for another video, wink wink. Starting with exclusives and special editions. Carly, an orange zoo with pink accents and a peace sign heart symbol on her back, was a release exclusive to Build-A-Bear Workshop as part of a collaboration with Sepia LLC, which was the company who made ZhuZhu Pets. This was a big surprise to me because I feel like this is something I would have ran into because I was obsessed with ZhuZhu Pets when they first came out, and like as a kid I feel like everyone's obsessed with Build-A-Bear. I feel like I just didn't know Build-A-Bear sold like things that weren't Build-A-Bears. Like I knew they sold the bears, the outfits, and like sometimes like tiny little bears I feel like they did. So this was something I had never heard before. As far as I know, Carly was the only ever Build-A-Bear ZhuZhu Pet to be sold at that store. However, there were a few exclusive outfits for zoos sold at Build-A-Bear stores during this time, such as this rainbow heart wrap with sunglasses, striped polo, and other summery outfits and accessories. Back to Carly though. She is actually a very unique special edition zoo, as she is the only one who got her own top card, which was not something the other one-time only releases got. What are we drinking today? I made a blueberry iced coffee. I brewed the coffee and then I made blueberry cold foam. I made strawberry yesterday and it was really good. It probably looks really bad. It tastes like kind of like a blueberry muffin. Justice, a purple hamster whose birthmark is the Justice logo, is a special edition release for, if you could guess, Justice. Being the first ever purple ZhuZhu Pet and a special edition, this zoo was actually sold for $15 as opposed to the typical $10. I feel like this is the most 2010 collaboration of all time. Like, are you kidding? Luigi, a special edition zoo, was only released as an exclusive to the pizza shop set with a pizza birthmark and Italian flag coloring, and honestly, I'm kind of obsessed with him. There are a few hamsters that are considered very rare due to it being country exclusives, such as Magenta, who was the first ever pig zoo, Meadow, a spring-themed zoo, and Pounce, a pink leopard print zoo, all being Europe exclusives, making it that much harder to get them. One Europe exclusive that is pretty interesting to me is Jack the Lion, as part of the Zoofari series. However, we aren't talking the original Jack. There were 2 Jack releases, so for whatever reason, Jack was given an exclusive counterpart only in Europe, and the only major difference between the two would be the fact that the exclusive Jack would have a pink nose instead of black. This is a little confusing to me. I just don't know why they would make an exclusive just to like barely change him up. ZhuZhu Babies would also get their own special edition releases, such as Baxter, a blue and yellow original ZhuZhu baby, only available when purchasing one of the multiple ZhuZhu Pets DS games. The next rare ZhuZhu baby would be when the franchise ultimately went with the new crawling big head design as opposed to the old style. Is this a safe space to say I did not like this redesign? Even when it came out, I was a early ZhuZhu Pets girl, so like the second those bitches hit shelves, I was like inconsolable, like because I wanted them so bad. I do believe I had the original ZhuZhu babies who you could like push around in a stroller, and those I just thought were so cute. But for whatever reason, maybe they didn't do well or something because they changed them to these weird crawling humanoid hamster things. I don't know, I don't like them. I guess a lot of other people liked them because they made a ton. Freckles would be the first and only special edition ZhuZhu baby with this specific style. This time a dog with blue and white coloring, only available with the ZhuZhu Puppies DS game, which frankly, I didn't even know existed. As always, comment below if I missed any of your favorite rare and exclusive ZhuZhu Pets. I typically don't see a lot of ZhuZhu Pets being sold for high prices, which is why I started with this one, just because it's kind of a smaller franchise and only lasted a few years, but I still think it's important to talk about these special releases because I think it's really cool and a lot of people put so much effort into these just to kind of be forgotten. So let's move on to the next section. I am definitely 1,000,000%, probably very soon, doing a deep dive into Generation 3 My Little Pony to be exact. This was the generation from 2003 to 2009, pretty much right before Friendship is Magic, which was so iconic that it kind of overshadowed the previous generation. I will talk so much about it. I was such a My Little Pony girl back in the day, specifically during this generation. I didn't really watch Friendship is Magic too much. I was kind of at that point too old, but I'm gonna save a lot of my thoughts for that video. I wanted to talk about some of the rarest toy exclusives from this generation because I do think that this generation had some of the best My Little Pony toys out of all of them. Generation 3 of the My Little Pony franchise began in the year 2003. This new era was seen as a revamp to connect with an even younger audience than before, which was typically 9+. The toys, in my opinion, made the switch from more sophisticated ponies who stood tall and looked like older, you know, to more condensed, childlike ponies who definitely look as if they were made to be younger. Since this generation only lasted till 2009, I won't be talking about anything after that, as opposed to ZhuZhu Pets, who only lasted a good 3 or 4 years. My Little Pony had been around for 2 decades before Generation 3 even began. So there are a lot more to go over. A big theme for this video will be the difference between highly sought after and rare. A lot of people, including me sometimes, use those two terms interchangeably and think that just because people sell hundreds of dollars for a specific toy, or anything for that matter, means that it is rare. And I literally forgot to explain the difference. So basically, highly sought after generally just means something that people really want. There could be many reasons for it, but that's just like the standalone meaning of it. Rare means it is like literally hard to come by. Just because something is highly sought after and a lot of people want it doesn't necessarily mean that it is rare. For example, we'll talk about Littlest Pet Shops later, but Savvy from LPS Popular, she is considered highly sought after, but I wouldn't call her rare because I see listings of her everywhere. However, she's really expensive because everyone wants her. But I personally think something that is highly sought after, I feel like I've said that so many times, in some ways makes it rare because so many people have gotten it, like so many people want it, so they've bought all of them. There's less for everybody else. You know what I mean? I've had people in my comments being like, they're not actually rare. I know. So for a reference before getting into the rare ponies, some of the typical ponies you would see during this time would be Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, Sparkleworks, Minty, Sunny Days, you get the gist. So let's start with some of the special and limited edition Generation 3 My Little Pony releases. Anchors Away would seemingly be the first limited edition store exclusive of Generation 3, being sold as a Costco exclusive in 2005. You can see her on the box of the Butterfly Adventure set, and this would be the only time Anchors Away would be available to purchase, making her one of the rarest ponies to this day. I really like her a lot. I love her little cutie mark with the anchors on it, and I think this is a solid release. However, despite her being so rare and only being sold one time back in 2005, her price has gone down quite a bit throughout the years, and this unfortunately will be a theme in this section, which I was shocked. I was baffled doing research for this video, you guys. I came across a forum thread on the My Little Pony Trading Post website from 2008, where many users discussed the prices they had paid for their Anchors Away ponies, all from around $85 to $120. But nowadays, I've seen this pony go for literally $35 to $40, which is kind of insane. I know 2008 was literally 17 years ago. Kill me now. And with this generation getting completely overshadowed by Friendship is Magic, it's not exactly surprising, but for some reason it was. Next up, we have the Beach Belle and Caribbean Delight, who were sold as a 2-pack back in 2005 for Menards, which I don't even know what that is. I'm sorry. These two are beach themed, with Caribbean Delight sporting a parrot and heart cutie mark, while Beach Belle has white and pink flowers. They both also came with little summery vacation outfits, and I really do like this set, honestly. I have yet to see any listings for these two anytime in recent years, but back in 2007, they were often being auctioned off for $80 to $100, so I think it's safe to assume that they would see the same fate as Anchors Away nowadays, and would probably go for $40 to $50. However, I can't say for sure, so if we have any Generation 3 My Little Pony lovers, let me know in the comments. Why did I do this? Next up, 3 ponies would be sold as Walmart Black Friday exclusives in 2006 as part of the Crystal Rainbow Castle set. And I have to say, this thing looks awesome. I want it so bad. Although the castle itself had been sold previously, Crowning Glory, Pretty Palace, and Royal Beauty would all be sold as limited edition releases, therefore making them quite rare. I've seen Pretty Palace be sold for around $30 fairly recently, so we can probably assume the same for the other two. Moving on to licensing show and toy fair exclusives. These releases would not be available to the general public, but only to those who attended these special one-time only My Little Pony events. This is not just a My Little Pony thing. We will talk about Littlest Pet Shop later and how they had many Comic-Con exclusives and stuff, so I highly recommend looking into your favorite toy lines and seeing if there were any convention exclusives that they made specifically for those events. I think it's really interesting. Anyway, let's get into it. We will be leaving the rarest pony for last, so starting with the 2003 licensing show Pinkie Pie. This would be a fitting release for the year, as Pinkie Pie was the first ever Generation 3 pony to be released. She was my favorite, by the way. This special variant would include a special symbol with the words licensing show around her balloon cutie mark, as opposed to the original design that was simply just the balloons. Ideally, the only way you could get this special modified Pinkie Pie would be if you attended the licensing show. However, Hasbro actually ended up accidentally selling some of these licensing show Pinkie Pies just at Toys R Us in random releases, so not only is this a super rare release, but it has a bit of a messy background, which I love. I love the drama. There are a few more licensing show and toy fair exclusives, however, in my opinion, some of them are not really all that great. They're just regular looking ponies, so we're gonna move on to some of the more interesting ones, and I also need to save something for my My Little Pony deep dive. Let's skip to the MLP fair and Comic-Con Comic-Con exclusives because this is where it gets interesting. The 2007 MLP Fair Pinkie Pie is absolutely gorgeous to me. I love the white to pink gradient. This specific release was also sold at PonyCon 2007 in the UK, with 300 of them being produced in total. The balloon cutie mark is in pink and orange as opposed to her original yellow and blue colors, I think. And she also has a unique design of the same colors on her other side. The 2008 MLP Fair in Providence, Rhode Island would include this special unnamed all pink pony with all kinds of unique heart and flower designs. That same year, Europe's MLP Fair would release the same design pony but with a completely different color scheme, which I thought was pretty cool. Comment below which one you like better. I of course like the pink one better because hello. 2009's MLP Fair would showcase the peacock pony, whose design resembles that of a peacock, which I am completely obsessed with. As for Comic-Con, 2007's release would be the superhero pony, which would include little comic phrases on her legs, such as kapow and zoom. And she also had superhero costume accents painted on, which I thought was such a nice touch and super creative. The next year's Comic-Con exclusive would be the ninja pony, with the villain debuting the following year. Okay, totally on me for not spending more time on the villain pony, but like what? It has like two sides, like it's so freaking cool. I did not pay that much attention to it until I was editing and I was like, oh my god, how could I skip past this so quickly? Definitely look at this, it's so cool and I'm obsessed with it. Still, with how exclusive these releases are though, the prices don't seem to go over $60. It's sad to see the interest in Generation 3 has not picked up over the years, especially with the resurgence of nostalgia and collecting little childhood toys within the last 5 years. I feel like TikTok really started that up again with blind boxes and calico critters and Littlest Pet Shop. It's honestly surprising Generation 3 My Little Ponies have not received the Littlest Pet Shop treatment, or even a fragment of that. However, there is one special edition pony that to this day is still sold for over $200. That brings us to the rarest My Little Pony from Generation 3, Rosie Posey. This pony was only available to receive as part of a gift for those who attended the 2005 Hasbro Children's Hospital Charity Ball. This is a pink pony with purple, yellow, and blue hair, and its cutie mark included a dolphin symbol surrounded by a purple flower and the words Hasbro Children's Hospital Caring for Kids. Rosie Posey was given in a sealed bag and included with a small card reading, "Meet Rosie Posey, a pony with a cheerful smile and a warm heart for all the friends of Hasbro Children's Hospital. In celebration of the 2005 My Little Pony Friendship Ball, please take Rosie Posey home with our compliments and gratitude for making this year's ball a great success." Now we're getting into the expensive stuff. I feel like I've introduced Webkinz so much recently, so real quick for those who don't know, these little guys were the plushies you'd find in stores and enter the code to play online with. Although the website has been available since its debut in 2005, the original classic Webkinz plushies were discontinued back in 2019. However, they are coming back, which is really exciting, especially as someone who has gotten back into Webkinz within the last like 6 months. When Webkinz plushies were still being produced and sold, the most valuable plushies were those who were considered retired. However, since they are discontinued, they're all retired, really, so that doesn't really mean much nowadays. Starting with the Signature series from 2009 to 2013. If these don't sound familiar to you, that's because they were higher quality Webkinz, sold for a higher price, $28 to be exact, as opposed to the typical like $15. These were made with much more detail and fluffier texture, and I do believe they were made by a different company, but as a collaboration with Gans. They also came with more in-game items than the regular plushies, such as a signature theme item and a wish token. So due to the higher price, better and more detailed quality, along with them only being around for a few years, many of these signature pets have become very valuable over the years. Before getting into these rare plushies, it's also important to note that a Webkinz with their code still attached is worth much more than a Webkinz without the code, because if you have the code, that means you could still play with it online, and the ones without the code is simply just a cute little plushie. So those can still be sold for quite a bit, especially if they're considered rare, but most of these releases that I will be referring to as being sold for hundreds of dollars do include the code, so just keep that in mind. Some of these highly expensive signature pets include the Red Wolf, who typically goes for $150 to $250, the Timber Wolf for $150 to $300, Siberian Husky for $250 to $350. However, I believe the Australian Shepherd takes the cake as the rarest signature Webkinz, consistently being sold from $400 to $600 with the code. However, enough with the signatures, let's go over some rare classic Webkinz. The Webkinz 10-year pup is highly sought after, typically going for $300-ish. Although it's not the rarest, it is definitely still considered extremely valuable. Although it's not worth as much, my biggest flex is I have the Pumpkin Puppy from 2011. Although the tag and code is long gone, if you do sell him with the code, you could get a good $100 out of it. Similarly, the full-sized Sherbet Bunny, a seasonal release from 2007 and being retired in 2009, is considered very rare, going for around $100 as well. Same with the Winter Fawn, who I'm pretty sure I had back in the day and was super freaking obsessed with. The iconic Love Puppy we actually talked about in my Girly Lost Media video with Kylie Bogley. Please go watch, it's literally my favorite video ever. This plushie is sold for around $100 with no code and up to $350 with code, which is fair enough because how cute is she? There are so many rare Webkinz that I'll be skipping over because I feel like they released so many plushies. So let me know if you guys would enjoy a Webkinz deep dive video. I feel like I've said that so many times today. But let's just get into the top 3 rarest of them all. Second place goes to the duo Cheeky Dog and Cheeky Cat. Some of the first ever Webkinz released back in May of 2005, they were also the first ever pets to be retired. Although not technically the rarest, the Cheeky Dog and Cat are probably the most expensive Webkinz you'll come across, without code being sold for around $300, but with a code could have you spending more than $700. Insane. I think this is one of the instances where retired actually means something. Because of how early they were retired, that means nobody could get these pets for many years, you know? And for the rarest Webkinz ever, to the point where the creative director of Webkinz had to tweet out to clarify that the rarest Webkinz is not the Cheeky Dog, but the Narwhal. Random Webkinz fact, the rarest Webkinz plush toy isn't the Cheeky Dog or signature Timberwolf. It's the Narwhal. There are more than 10 times more Cheeky Dogs than Narwhals. And if we're taking the term rare at face value, he is absolutely right. The fact that it's actually extremely hard to come across even one listing of the Narwhal proves the point right there that it is indeed the hardest to come by Webkinz. In fact, the only one I can currently find is on eBay for $1,500. Now, I'm sure this person could possibly be just overestimating how much this is worth, but honestly, with how expensive the Cheeky Dog and Cat are, I wouldn't be surprised. But why? Well, the Narwhal was actually the last ever classic Webkinz to be made back in 2019. So add that to the fact that not many of them were even produced in the first place. This thing is practically impossible to get your hands on. I've recently talked about LPS in my last video, but for those who don't know, these were the tiny little animal bobbleheads with big eyes that dominated girls' toys from the mid-2000s to early 2010s. To understand why a lot of these are rare, I do have to give just the tiniest bit of backstory, but don't worry, I am sick of telling this story too. Except, no I'm not. Quick version, the franchise was doing great until around 2012, when a redesign occurred in order to make the toys look more similar to into the new Littlest Pet Shop animated series. This redesign was absolutely diabolical and really alienated the fans who just wanted the pets that they fell in love with back in 2005. Mix that with LPS Tube on the rise, aka fans making Littlest Pet Shop YouTube videos, these original style pets became much more highly sought after and therefore rare, especially those molds that were considered the main 5, popularized by the most popular LPS tuber, Sophie GTV. Anyway, enough backstory, let's get into the pets. If this section sounds familiar, I've talked about the Rarest LPS many times in the past, but I simply couldn't make this video without talking about them, so let's get into it. There are 2 special Comic-Con pets that are extremely rare. One of them being the superhero short hair cat that was only available for those who attended the 2009 San Diego Comic-Con with a limited number produced. The other was the Comic-Con hippo that was available the next year at the same San Diego event. LPS 272 is also extremely rare, and actually for an interesting reason. 272 was released in a 3-pack in 2007 alongside Kitten 273 and Monkey 274. This set was released as an exclusive for the store Limited 2, which was shut down and became Justice. Anyway, since Limited 2 doesn't exist anymore, and this was an exclusive, not a lot of people got their hands on it or could ever again once they shut down, and 272 being a main 5 pet makes him even more rare. Fun fact, my bestie Amber literally just has 272 laying around, and every time I visit, I just appreciate his beauty. Like, girly is sitting on a gold mine. Another store exclusive would be the French Walmart exclusive LPS 2046, who I've only ever seen be sold for around like $500. LPS 568 was released as an Australian exclusive and is not to be confused with Spaniel 748, which has more harsh lines of blue in her eyes as opposed to 568's typical round eyes. Although there, in my opinion, isn't necessarily anything super special about this pet, sometimes less is more when it comes to, well, everything, but specifically Littlest Pet Shops. This pet is extremely rare and is usually sold for around $500. LPS 909 is so rare because she was a Walmart exclusive that was only available for a short amount of time, and I would die for her. Genuinely die. This is like the cutest. I'm just obsessed with her. But in my opinion, the rarest Littlest Pet Shop of all time would be from Generation 2.1, and that is the purple and pink turtle from the 2007 licensing show. This pet doesn't have a number associated with it, and it is said that only 15 of them were made. Only those who attended the expo could get their hands on it, and those were mostly people in the industry. Like, this wasn't like Littlest Pet Shop fans, you know what I mean? So this dude is so freaking rare, okay? He's so rare. I will never ever get my hands on him, which makes me really upset because I think he's so cute. I think he's so cute. It's pretty much impossible to find these online anywhere, but those who have purchased him have spent over $1,000 on this tiny little turtle. So count me out. Now, how could I talk about rare toys and people spending thousands of dollars on a plushie without mentioning Beanie Babies, the iconic collectible plushies from the 90s? Another topic I want to do a full deep dive on. Shut up, everyone is so sick of hearing that. Beanie Babies were simply that girl. They paved the way. We would not have Squishmallows or Jellycats without Beanie Babies, and you could quote me on that. Created in 1993, Beanie Babies are small plush animals that are filled with beans or pellets, making for a bit of a heavier feel than other plushies at the time. Beanie Babies are even cited as the first ever internet sensation. Collectors were seeing the resale prices shooting up, and everyone began to catch on that keeping their iconic TY tag made them far more valuable. There were many reasons that factored into the mass hysteria of Beanie Baby collectors, which I would love to go through another time, but to keep this short, they were small, cute, cheap. Every single plush had a name, birthday, and little story attached. And each release was often retired fairly quickly, which really drove home the gotta rush to the store and buy it before it's too late factor. With that, what are the rarest Beanie Babies of all time? I'm sure you guys are probably clicking out of this video right now because you think, I know, it's probably the peace sign bear that is sold for $500,000 on eBay. Wrong. The misinformation around Beanie Babies is wild. And I went into this video thinking that I was gonna talk about plushies that were worth $20,000 because that's all I hear. That's the first thing I see when I look up is all like these
top 10 most valuable Beanie Babies. The Princess Diana is sold for $300,000.
Wrong. This is just lies. They're just lying. So let's make it very clear right here. And I'm not a Beanie Babies fanatic. This is just what I have found from like a good hour and a half of research. There is no Beanie Baby worth $100,000. There is no Beanie Baby worth even $10,000. So why does everyone think this? Unfortunately, with the rise of clickbait articles and collectors saving their Beanie Babies for years thinking that one day they'd be worth $300,000, it's just not the reality. Most of these listings are just way too optimistic, and it's probably a lot of people like from the 90s who kept their Beanie Babies because everyone around them said one day they'll be worth blank. So to find out what these toys actually go for, you're gonna want to look at the eBay sold listings. Like these are people who actually were able to sell the toys for the amount that they listed, which we will get into. But first, how can we find out if our Beanie Babies are worth anything? Here's a comment I found in a Reddit thread that explains a few ways you could tell. Easiest way to answer your question about what makes a Beanie Baby valuable is if it has a first, second, or third generation hang tag paired with a first or second generation tush tag. Then you have beanies made in Korea or Indonesia, which are more valuable than their China counterparts. There are some fourth generation beanies with value. Tusk with a tuck name error, Snort with a Tabasco poem, Tank with more or less than 7 or 9 lines in the shell, also border spelling rather than border, Chocolate with the word moose in the poem spelled renoose or mosque, Inky with more or less than 8 legs. Personally, I have 2 7-legged Inkies, and of course exclusives. So it's safe to say a lot of these mistakes are seen as rare because it's special, you know? However, although we are debunking the whole $500,000 Beanie Baby fiasco, don't get me wrong, people will still spend an absurd amount of money on these little guys. Scouring through the sold section on eBay, the most you'll see someone spend on a Beanie Baby is like $3,000, which, don't get me wrong, is still a ton, okay? But it is not the $20,000, $500,000 that everyone tries to tell you. However, they are still pretty much the most expensive franchise we'll be talking about in this video. Spot the dog is highly sought after with his no spot version from 1994. I think it's honestly just because it's a little ironic that his name is Spot, but he doesn't have a spot. And there are versions of him with a spot, so it's kind of like, which one do you have? Do you have the funny one? Number 12, Baby Billionaire, is a TY employee exclusive, and he's one I consistently see being sold for around $1,500 to $2,000, which honestly kind of makes sense. This is probably a really cool collectible to have. The Princess Diana release is probably one of the more popular rare Beanie Babies, and it is definitely valuable, but it usually only sells for around $300. However, it does depend on the version, but that is with tag and pellet specifications. This bear had many different releases with different types of pellets or beans inside, different spaces between the poem. However, the most valuable release of Princess would be ones without the rose on her chest, which goes to show that most of the time the more valuable Beanie Babies are the ones with mistakes or errors. Even then, this is very complicated, and I am not a Beanie Babies collector by any means, so I would really appreciate the superfans and experts to educate us in the comments. There is so much that goes into it, and these guys have been around for quite a long time. I would say they're typically never sold for more than $3,000, but I'm probably wrong. However, my favorite Beanie Baby of all time is not rare in the slightest, actually. But it is so weird, I just needed to talk about it. The End was released in 1999 as a farewell to the fans as the Beanie Babies franchise was coming to an end. A black bear with a gold bow tie, fireworks symbol, and the words "The End" written on its chest, not to mention the poem attached to it, which reads, "All good things come to an end. It's been fun for everyone. Peace and hope are never gone. Love you all and say so long." It's safe to say this thing is honestly really eerie, as internet users have deemed it the apocalypse bear. It was even sold at McDonald's, assuming as part of a Happy Meal, which probably scared the shit out of kids, I can imagine, because what do you mean the end? Of what? It doesn't even say anything really about Beanie Babies ending, so it's just like, okay, is it the world ending? Like, what are we doing? I know people thought the year 2000 would mean the end of the world, so, and all that, just for Beanie Babies to not discontinue. They came back like instantly. This is how dramatic I am, honestly. It's like when influencers announce their social media break just to come back like the next day. And this thing is worth like nothing. Like nobody cares about it. But you will see listings for like $800. Don't listen to them. I've seen him on eBay for like $1 or something. Also, real quick before I end this, sorry, my hair looks insane. I needed to give a thank you to Simply Just Funtastic. They made my new end card. So stick to the end to see it because it's really cute and I love it. Thank you. So that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe and comment below if you'd like a part 2 to this. I had a lot of fun. Comment below some video ideas you'd like to see. I have a ton. Don't worry, I'm not running out of ideas, but sometimes it's hard to choose and I'm like, what the F am I even doing? I hope you guys liked the collab last week with Kylie Bockley. That was so freaking fun and I'm never going to shut up about it. Definitely go watch that if you missed it, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye!